This episode of Real Life Stories is a Q&A from one of our information evenings. Approved adopters Buzz and Jenni share their experience of the preparation and assessment, navigating family finding, the matching process, and the support they have received from their social worker, Jeff Hudson, as well as the wider Family Futures team.
And one of the things that prospective adopters might do is go to some different information evenings, different meetings. Is that something you guys did? And if you did go to other ones, why did you ultimately go with Family Futures?
So hi guys. We went to 3 information evenings.
I think 4 including Family Futures.
Including Family Futures, yeah. But we also spaced those out over sort of a longer period of time. We didn't do it too intensely. We kind of it was spread out over a little while, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And you can get a feeling for the different approaches clearly in the information evenings. All of them we learned something from positively, I think. So it's definitely something to recommend.
But yeah, I think we actually always had in mind that we were going to go with a different agency. And then it was actually Buzz came across Family Futures randomly through an Ofsted report or something.
Yeah, I wasn't aware that agencies had Ofsted ratings, and I was reading a blog post by an adopter that mentioned it. Did a quick Google, and I came across FF being right at the top there with a I can't remember what it is. I think it's outstanding or something.
Yeah.
Some outstanding. And so, and then I saw that they are local to London. So
we started to do a bit more research, and Buzz came across a couple of interviews with adopters that had been with Family Futures, and we just really liked the sound of Family Futures' approach. It felt more accessible to us in terms of the alternative routes that they use in terms of part of the assessment process. So we were really intrigued, and so we contacted you guys, and we then first met with Charlotte and had a bit of information from Charlotte, and then we came in and met Phil in person. And that was also part of the reason why I think that we were really drawn to Family Futures, was it was a really personal approach to actually finding out more information. It felt like it was really human and much more approachable than some of the other agencies that we'd met and done research through along the way.
Yeah, they're just a lot more interested in us almost as potential adopters, which we hadn't come across, and the holistic approaches that made us feel comfortable and on the same wavelength, really.
Yeah. And I think we got a real impression, and it worked out to be true, that you would get a much more in-depth sort of training and learning. I think we got the impression, and like I said, it was the case, that it was very much two-way. You would be learning about us, but we would also be learning about developmental trauma and how that manifests and presents itself, which would better prepare us. And having already done a bit of research and knowing that there were going to be challenges, we felt like we wanted to be as best prepared as we could be.
Yeah, I think
we would get that through Family Futures.
A bit like tonight, and like we're talking to you, the testimonials we discovered from FF really had a running theme that were about long-term care for you. You're not just going with an agency and then dropping off a cliff once you've got your child. The training and the support was there, constant, a constant when you want it, and that just I just felt really supported and optimistic towards the future, that, as I sort of said, we weren't just going to go with an agency and then be on our own. It's a longer game of support, which felt really comforting.
Thank you. And Jenni, you mentioned sort of research. Could you say a little bit between you both about what other preparations looked like in those early days? And I always think it's helpful, if you don't mind, say a little bit about the volunteering and that sort of childcare experience that you got sort of before starting an assessment too.
Yeah, definitely. We did a lot of research, and we'd kind of been preparing and gearing up for this for quite a long time before we actually started to approach agencies. And we really spent that time reading a lot of books, kind of, it started out with more like other people's stories of their adoption journeys books, and then it quite quickly sort of morphed into more in-depth research about sort of developmental trauma, really, and like the more challenging aspects of adoption. So we did a lot of research around that, all the podcasts, all the YouTubes, everything. And then and we really started ramping up our experience with children. So borrowing all of our friends and family children for days out, and then we also just really tried to get as much sort of volunteering experience with children that didn't already know us, to really sort of start to learn like how you start to build up that bond with children that aren't introduced to you from, you know, as part of your support network.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to go to the primary schools nearby and ask if you can go to reading clubs or any community services, because you're meeting children that haven't got the security of you being introduced by with their adults there. You're kind of you have to learn the skills to kind of approach them, and you know that it was really, really valuable. I think as well, I said earlier that information evenings were really spaced out, and I think for me specifically, it was our first one that we went to. I really learned that we had a lot to kind of do. I took it on board. That I was really surprised. I hadn't thought that they said you should have all your DIY jobs done, so you're not doing that when the child arrives, or it's all prepared. And that's where we learned about, you know, volunteering and the value of it, and directed towards certain books, and we could see gaps in our learning. So that's also why we kind of spread the information evenings out, because we had one, and then we went away and made a list of all the things we needed to do.
Big list.
And in terms of the actual volunteering that we did, like, it was quite challenging to get to find like sort of opportunities that felt like they would work around like work commitments and things like that as well. So we had to work quite hard actually to find like some good opportunities. And in the end, we kind of ended up doing 3 different ones. We did like helping at a forest school. We ran like an arts class at the local community centre. And then we reached out to a local childminder and actually got connected with a child through them that the family needed a bit of extra support with, and so we built a really nice relationship with him as well. So it was all really varied, and that felt like it was good as well.
And actually, we're still doing our volunteering now, because we are enjoying it. And you know, who knows in the future when we're busy with life and things, but at the moment we still see that child weekly, and we still book in for art classes. We've reduced our time, but we still really enjoyed it, and not just value, but enriched our life as well. So
thank you. And sort of between Charlotte and Phil, and the little you said already, people probably have a sense that the Family Futures assessment process is unique, and sort of Phil and I, certainly having worked in other places and done long form assessments in other places, we've never worked in an assessment process quite like this. But from your perspective, and how well you feel it has prepared you, and the learning, not just of developmental trauma, but Phil alluded as well to sort of often people, certainly it's an aim of the process, is for people to learn something about themselves to take forward into the future, again, to benefit them as adoptive parents. So I guess the short question is, how did you find our assessment process, and sort of through that stage 1 taste a day, and particularly this, I guess, the stage 2 6 days? You can be honest.
2 words probably for me: intensely engaging. And it's intense in the fact that you can't stop listening and learning, and every module has value that you instantly learn about, and you don't feel like you're kind of over learning things repeatedly. Everything is really well formed. You get it in a chunk, you learn, and you want to learn more, and then it just seems to seamlessly, the next question you have is the next module almost. So it was very well planned, and that intensity just comes from the engagement that's formed. And I think also, just to add on top of that, I think it's because unlike other trainings, you're not being trained, you're not in a larger group, so you may have a social worker and a therapist, and if you're a couple like myself and Jenny, or you're it's basically either 2-on-1 or 1-on-1 in that effect. So yeah, you're getting quite a lot of attention and quite a lot of teaching in that form, which
and easier to like ask all the questions that you want to ask, because you're not kind of like, you don't want to be that person who's like the group, or you kind of have that more like, it's kind of like feels like an easier opportunity to dive in with all the things that you really want to ask.
And we had faith that we wouldn't miss out on that kind of community of adopters, because of the iAdopt community, and we've already been in touch with 2 other adoptive families in FF, and have had conversations back and forth, and that's been amazing as well. So I would also add, like, it was a really friendly and collaborative atmosphere. Like, it felt like just really collaborative. And I think having like social worker and a therapist is like a really nice dynamic, because it's not just like one person. It doesn't feel like you're kind of like being interrogated or interviewed. It feels like you're like working together. It was conversational, wasn't it? Well, you weren't being lectured or spoken to. It was a back and forth. It was
And I think the like a lot of the parts of the assessment process are sort of based upon like some of the therapies that Family Futures use on the therapeutic side, and that was like quite fun, and B, like, it kind of made all of like the information that you're trying to give them like more accessible and sort of an easier way to approach it. But also, like, again, it was like learning more about everything. And also now I think we're sort of like starting to learn more about our future child, like, and the things that they might need. You can start to pieces it more together, because you've kind of like had that experience, and so when you're starting to think about like the support that they might need, you can actually kind of like piece how that would work for them. And I think especially where you sort of get the other sort of arms and legs of Family Futures with like learning about sensory integration and the educational specialist, like all of that just feels like really helpful that we already have a lot of grounding in that information.
It wasn't just a therapist, social worker, was it? It's an educational specialist. It's Sensory, Emily and Angela, and it's a bigger, wider family, people helping you.
And so all that's, I'm really pleased to hear that. And like, we haven't paid Jenny and Buzz at all. Like, that level of positivity is like, whew, thank you so much. I certainly, and I know Georgie, the psychotherapist colleague that assessed Jenny and Buzz alongside me, sort of felt that collaborative atmosphere as well, certainly. I guess the $1 million question, as the saying goes out, but there is, and it's a future focused question, so crystal ball territory, but how are you feeling at the moment about this match progressing? Are you feeling prepared?
I think as prepared as you could be, but
I think that's it.
There's a lot of uncertainty in everything through this whole process, and you sort of have to get used to riding that wave. But I definitely feel like supported. It's like Jeff is really good at keeping us up to date and like jumping on a call whenever we need to like catch up about anything. So yes, as much as possible.
I mean, yes, and also confident that we can either have or find the tools, hopefully, in the future. There's like an approach. There's like a confident approach to things. We might not know the answers now, and we may not find the answers straight away, but we will work towards something that resembles an answer.
Good point, Buzz. Brilliant point. And maybe just in brief, because I don't know if you were on the call by that point, but Phil shared sort of briefly details about panel and how that process works, and very understandably it can be very nerve-wracking for a lot of people. It's sort of one thing to have the blooming gigantic par sort of written and done and dusted and have gone off to the panel of people. But how was panel for you as an experience and the questions that came your way?
I mean, panel was incredibly positive, to be honest. I think when you listen to the podcasts and other people's YouTubes, they usually end up being positive, but in your head, without that, you see it as this big jury that are coming to judge you. But really, all those people, professionals that are gathered together, they want you to do well. They're in your corner, really. They're not trying to trick you. So, and to be honest, FF prepare you, and they, put the panel together, so they're not gonna to do it if they don't have faith in you. So you just have to sort of, and it's really an opportunity to learn that, you get to ask questions, you get to think. It's the process of preparation. It's all just about expanding yourself. So I found panel quite positive, personally.
But I was really nervous though.
Yeah, you can help.
But once you get into it, it's fine.
Yeah, just keep the faith. But
Definitely.
Yeah.
And Phil was speaking as well sort of about the numbers as they are at the moment in terms of link maker profiles, that there are at the moment twice the number of profiles on link maker as there were this time last year, and the position we're in of once again there being more children who are waiting for safe permanent homes than there are sort of adoptive families to adopt them. I think by virtue of that and the general awesomeness of you two, you've had a very short family finding journey, is true. One of the things that we were sort of thinking about is obviously through the stage 2 journey and incorporated in the PAR is a sense of the child that you have in mind and that you perhaps are going to be looking for through the family finding process. Gender and age range, level of need. Do you think, sort of going back literally only a few weeks ultimately, where you were before seeing the profile of the child you are being considered to adopt for at the moment, do you think there's any significant change between what you had in your mind and seeing that profile?
I think that's really hard to answer, because when you start to read the profiles, it's kind of weird how you just get a connection. And so I don't know.
That's okay.
I could probably put it before we began Linkmaker, what we were expecting, as opposed to when we got into the process of Linkmaker. Maybe that's I think we didn't have a specific gender, so that does make it quite open for us as
I think we went into it quite open, and I think that like we became more open as we went through the assessment process. I think we were quite open going into starting the assessment process anyway. But I think certainly on like maybe age ranges and sort of maybe some levels of needs, we became like with more understanding, felt more prepared for being able to consider. So I definitely think through the process we became a little bit more open. Well, definitely more open. And then when you actually just start putting it all together in real life, it's just weird.
Linkmaker was probably the most alien part of the process. That going in, it's to get your head around is it takes a while. So
I think especially the first, like almost like the first time like you're on it is.
We took our time on everything.
We
tried
did
to move
really
as slowly as possible with everything, deliberately, and I feel that was the correct approach for us.
We kept our profile hidden for the first week, so that we could just sort of navigate and look at some profiles ourselves and sort of start to feel our way through it, as opposed to just diving straight in. And that worked for us, but I'm sure it's different for everybody.
And we didn't even look at Linkmaker until we were approved, because until we could action something, we didn't want to be just looking. So I don't know if that really answers your question, Jeff. Sorry.
No, it does. Sorry. No, it does, because it's, some people actually, unlike you, are not fixed, but certainly haven't perhaps narrower parameters that they sort of head into family finding thinking, oh, I am only thinking about a girl or a boy, or okay, maybe the gender, but actually only 3, 4, or 5. And actually some people then find themselves being drawn to a 6-year-old and feeling very surprised by that. And that sort of, as you were saying, Jenny, until you're sort of on Link Maker, you really don't know what connection you are going to feel to a child. And yes, albeit initially just through writing and pictures, perhaps a video alone, it's as the discussion opens up and family finding actually moves from being family finding into a matching process.
I think it was needs became our parameter in a way.
Bill, did you want to ask the couple something?
I just think it would be helpful just to give a context of when Buzz and Jenni were approved and when they had they started the real interest. Do you know what I mean? Exchanging information with the child. I just think that it'll help people just get a bit of context.
Yeah.
Do you want us to just go through that?
Yeah.
So we had matching panel at the beginning of June. Approval panel, wrong word. Sorry, approval panel at the beginning of June. And
we saw our little one's profile maybe 10 days, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
After
2 weeks after.
And then you do a thing where you like sort of register your interest in.
Yeah, and you write like a 500 word, I think it is.
Yes.
Like piece to say why. And you send that to the child social worker or family finder, and you hopefully get a response at some point.
And that, I believe, from what I understand, very unusually happened very quickly for us. Like we registered our interest, and within half an hour to an hour, all the exchanges had already been done. And I was like, what? On terms of like Jeff sending over our part to our little one social worker and vice versa. And then from then it's been quite a whirlwind of all happening quite quickly. But like I said, I understand that is maybe a bit unusual.
It'll just be quite so quick, yeah. And then it not uncommonly, as I sort of feel it, I don't know about you two, but I sort of feel it has. From that point, it slows down a little bit again, and actually there can be days coming into weeks of between milestones. And obviously we have the fixed date of the matching panel coming up, and we're working towards that. Obviously, most importantly, you have seen your little one in person and spent some time with them. And we've had some other meetings to sort of fill in some of the gaps of information. So not yet scored because of the time of year, but sort of a constant momentum, I hope you feel as well. But I guess I feel to move to ask actually, how are you feeling about that? Because obviously you've gone from that very ultimately positive family finding process, very quick one. How is matching feeling for you at the moment?
So what Jeff was alluding to there was a bump into, which is not always common. Do they know? Okay, well,
on my watch, best.
Which is a bump into where the child doesn't know who you are, and you bump into them in the foster care. But
the ratings felt very slow since then.
But from that point, then there's the updating of the APR and the other things, and getting ready for matching, and that feels slower. But one thing we've done, flipping to a tangent, one thing we did that was quite good was we booked in little mini breaks and holidays quite regularly, I would say. So at the end,
not since family finding started.
No, not since family started. But when we finished stage 2, we went away. When we matching panel, we went away. We kind of made sure we had downtime, because it can get very intense through the whole period. But
I think so in answer to Jeff's question about how we're feeling, like about the process now we're in the family finding, like it does feel like there's momentum. Like we have messages back and forth, and like it just, you can tell that there's things happening in the background. But after meeting little one, it's weird, like you feel like you miss them, and you just want to be able to see them again. So then you're waiting for like that, and also you've still got to get through matching panel, right? So you're like, I really hope this is going to be okay.
It will. So matching panel, for benefit of others, just like approval panel, is made up of the same types of people. It is that they give a recommendation rather than binding a decision in that moment, but they tell you the recommendation on the day. And then the people who have put on that panel, the local authority, their agency decision maker, makes that binding decision and communicates that within 2 weeks. And just like approval panel, social workers are risk averse enough that heading into these types of things that we wouldn't be going to matching panel unless we were very confident of the outcome. And an assessment ultimately of the level of compatibility between Jenni and Buzz and their child to be has happened between myself and my counterpart social workers in the local authority and the region, the adoptive region, for the family finding for that child. And relevant paperwork's been prepared and sent off to that panel of people already. And so we're working towards that in the coming days. There'll be some other meetings and we'll begin as we get closer to start thinking about what a plan of introductions and transitions looks like. And of course, Buzz and Jenni will be really closely involved in that. So it has to work for them, it has to work for their life.
I think from making the decision that adoption was the route forward for us to actually to meeting Family Futures, but we had started meeting other agencies before then. I think it was about 18 months.
Yeah.
We got married, not because we needed to, but just because we thought that would be a nice thing to do. And we went on like really good holiday, and also we wanted to build an office space for Buzz so that he could properly work from home, and obviously the spare bedroom situations and stuff. So we wanted to get all of that done. So we had about 18 months of doing all of those things in the background, and at the same time starting to listen to all the podcasts, do all the reading and all of that. And then we kind of knew that the assessment process takes 6 months, but 8-9 months, 8-9 months realistically. And then we thought that we didn't know how long it was going to take for matching. In all honesty, we hadn't planned. We thought minimum 3 months, maximum just over a year, maybe. But
it just happened a lot quicker. But luckily we prepared.
But we prepared ourselves to wait. We just didn't need to.
When a child has a plan of adoption, it will come from a local authority. So just like our office is in Islington, right? So a kid from Islington has got a plan of adoption, will be referred to the regional adoption agency, which is not Adoption London North. So Adoption London North will then, because they also recruit adopters as well, so they will look at their own internal pool. Right? They might have a working agreement with North London East or North London West to look across. So when they cannot find a placement internally, and they usually got up to 3 months, right? And then after that, they're obliged to put the child on the adoption link maker. Right?
Yeah.
So that's maybe it's good that we make the distinction between we're a voluntary adoption agency, so therefore we don't have the children. The regional adoption agency, which is part of the local authority, is part of the government, part of the state, they have the children, and then after 3 months they will profile those children.
Yeah.
So on the link maker platform, the children can come England, Wales, Scotland, right? So all over. So Buzz and Jenni's kid doesn't come from London, right? So everyone's got a cost of benefit, but that child is coming to a new life in London. So that's the way it works. And when it's the courts that will dictate how many children have a plan of adoption. Statistically, you would be better off going to an RAA because they will have more children, right? But it's not just statistics we're talking about here.
Yeah.
We're talking about a service, we're talking about different things.
Absolutely,
You know what I mean? So, but we're honest enough to say that we don't have children. People do think. And I think that the perception of children with a plan of adoption, right, you thought it would be more. But in actual fact is that for the courts, it's the last option, right? They will look at the Buzz family. Sometimes when you read the profiles, the local authority might have bent over backwards for mum and dad, but still they'll be able to come up with the goods. They'll be able to look after the children. Our Buzz pet or as family members, and it's no what. So the court are really, it's the last resort because we're extinguishing that child's relationship legally with its family. So there's a lot of stuff there that, and quite emotive stuff there that's in there. So it's about working our way through that. But ultimately, that's the reason why there might be, well, that 808, right, if we say it's 2,000 children of adoption, let's think about it, and we'll get 33% of siblings, right? And if we're 18, goes over a grand, it goes over 1,000, and it's 1,200. So we're now talking about 50, 60% of the children. Are you with me? So it's something that you, back to what we said at the very beginning, is looking at different agencies and what's for you. But if it's, and I would say quite clearly, is that if you wanted a baby, you'd maybe be better off looking at your own RAA, because for whatever reason, babies are snapped up quicker, and that's another story we can go into all day, because if everything carries a cost and a benefit, you know what I mean? So it's a way of looking at it, but that's the reality from where we are.
I'd just maybe say from our perspective on the RA versus VA thing, because said agency that we thought that we would go with before we found out about our family futures, that was an RA, and I think what really kind of was part of our decision making process is just like really thinking that this is your life, like it's the rest of your life, and it's like it's having that connection with the agency and feeling that you have that support, and I think that was one of the big reasons why we ended up going with Family Futures, because that was what we felt we would get from Family Futures, because it can feel daunting when you kind of put it into the black and white of the numbers and like make it into a statistics thing, but like, and obviously you have to think with your head as well, but like there's so much more to these decisions than
we didn't want to rush to fail. It's that like
just wanted to have that.
No, thank you for saying, and it's that thing, isn't it? If people in their head and heart know 18 months old is a cut-off for what they would consider, then of course no one has to apologise for that. And if they know that's what's right for them, if they're more open to age, and as you were sort of describing earlier in terms of not just gender but age and indeed level of need, because you came to this so open, you weren't necessarily constrained in that same way of feeling you only had to consider a region. And thank goodness, may I say, I wouldn't have got to meet you otherwise. I
think if there's I don't know if there's any more questions. I'd just say maybe a nice question to end on would be, what would be your kind of advice, Buzz and Jenni, for any other adopters, or your big takeaway? That might be a quite hard question, but
I think it's probably just going to sound really obvious, but just get as much experience as you can with children and children that don't already know you, and do lots of research.
And at the point you're at right now, I read about going with your gut, and that was true. We kept looking at different agencies because it didn't quite feel right in the gut. And when we met Family Futures, it did. And ultimately that's led us down the route we've gone to. So trust your gut would be my takeaway, I guess, at the point you're at.
Yeah, that's good. And I think that your point is trusting your gut, and I think that we come with the same intention as what's best for children, right? So a conversation for half an hour with us that actually is a benefit to you and to you making choices. It might not be Family Futures. That's not really what we hope, but it's not our intention. The intention is here for what's the best interest of children, and I think that you talk about experience. When we have work experience of working with children or work with young people with things that's all transferable. Do you know what I mean? But I think that if you want a conversation and want to discuss anything with us without any fear or favour, is that we're here, and that's. But ultimately, we want people to make an informed choice if they're going to go into adoption, you know, and whether that's to go in RAA or a VAA or AAA or whatever it is, that's up to themselves. Do you know what I mean? But we just want to be able to help people make that choice.
To find out more about adopting and to arrange a call with a member of our team, fill out an inquiry form on our website, www.familyfutures.co.uk. If you enjoyed this episode of the Family Futures podcast, why not subscribe or leave us a review?